We have been discussing whether, if a non-Jew purchases land in Eretz Yisrael, that removes its kedusha for trumas maasros, and for Shmita, whether there's a difference between trumas maasros and Shmita or not, and so on. The Rambam seemed to say that a non-Jew purchasing land in Eretz Yisrael would not remove its kedusha, and the Sefer Truma said that it did remove its kedusha, and once the kedusha was removed, that a Jew was allowed to work the land. And he brought as a raya the Gemara in Sanhedrin, where Rabbi Yanai says that because of the arnona, the tax that you have to pay to the Romans, that you are allowed to go out, that you should go out and plant and grow crops in the Shmita year, because the Rishonim explained, because the Shmita is only derabbanan, therefore you can do these things to be able to pay the tax and prevent the land from being taken by non-Jews. Now, this debate between the Rambam and the Sefer Truma is discussed extensively in the Achronim by the Beis Levi and the Chaznish. And the Chaznish says, Hine Sefer Truma נסתפק שיהא זמן הזה כדין סוריא. And he says that it's not clear to him that if the Sefer Truma is saying that Eretz Yisrael today has the same halacha as Syria, which is Syria was rabbinic, and that therefore a non-Jew purchasing land there would uproot its kedusha. However, he says, Amram ein ken das harif ve'arosh ve'armam, but the opinion of the Rif, Rosh, and Rambam is not like the Sefer Truma, and they hold that the land retains its kedusha, even though the non-Jew has purchased the land. So according to the Chaznish, the מכירה wouldn't help. Now, the Shulchan Aruch in Yeridea, Shin Lamed Aleph Sif Beis, explicitly address this question. Bzman hazeh, afילו במקום שהחזיקו בו עולי Bavel, even in a place that was not only held by the people that came from Egypt, but also those people that came from Babel. Afילו biMei, right? Even in the time of Ezra. Ein חיוב trumas maasros min the Torah. There's no obligation in truma maaser from the Torah. Ela midivrehim, but it's only from their words, the rabbis' words. Mipnei shenemar, because it says ki savo, when you enter the land, mashma bias kulchem velo bias mikzaschem. This means that all of you have to come, and not only part of you, meaning there has to be the majority of each one of the 12 Shvatim. Kamosh haisa b'mei Ezra, like there was in the time of Ezra, meaning in the time of Ezra, not the majority of all 12 Shvatim came, and therefore Shmita, Trumas, and Maasros were only rabbinic. Haga. The Rama makes a note. V'yesh cholkim, and some people disagree. The Sfira lahu dechayvim akshav be'eretz Yisrael b'trumas maasros midaraisa. That they hold, there are those that hold, meaning he's referring to the Rif, the Rosh, and the Rambam, that Trumas and Maasros in Eretz Yisrael today is from the Torah law. But we are not accustomed to do it this way, meaning the minhag is to follow the opinion that Trumas, Maasros, and Shmita b'zman hazeh is derabbanan. Now, people that have learned the Vilna Gaon's commentary on the Shulchan Aruch Biur Hagra know that in general it's a few short words, half a line, sources. They're very cryptic and difficult to understand. However, on this particular piece of the Shulchan Aruch, the Vilna goes on for, if you cut and paste and put it on a normal page of typing paper, it covers a whole page. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm going to do selected parts so we get the essence of what the Vilna Gaon says. And he says, Mikol makom truma b'zman hazeh derabbanan. In any instance, truma in our time is rabbinic. The kedushas Ezra gam ken batla delo kribiosi, because the kedusha of Ezra, that Ezra sang when he sanctified Eretz Yisrael, now is negated, not like Rabbi Yossi. Mimasha k'tuv b'perik gimel de Pesachim b'perik vav de Nazir hine letruma b'zman hazeh rabbanan. From the Gemaras in the third parak of Pesachim and the sixth parak of Nazir, it appears that truma in our time is rabbinic in nature. V'lo kasha kasavar truma chulu. And it's not a problem that there is an opinion there that says that implies that's from the Torah. Mashmida hachi hilchasa, and it seems from this, the way the Gemara reads, that the halacha is that truma in our time is only rabbinic in nature. V'ken Rabbi Yochanan and Liba Rabbanan, and this is also how Rabbi Yochanan learns according to the rabbi's opinion. V'kol sheken the kedushas Yehoshua batla, and all the more so in the sanctity that Yehoshua sanctified the land with is in our days already negated. Shari Rebbe hitter beishan, because we see in the Gemara that Rebbe allowed work in Shmita and not separating Trumas Meises in Beit Shan. Even though we say that the sanctity of the land has passed away and is no longer there, nonetheless the sanctity of Harabais and of Yerushalayim was not. Nonetheless, it requires great effort to push aside the Gemara in the first chapter of Chulin, the first chapter of Chagiga. Nonetheless, we see that it is pushed off. That the second sanctity sanctified even for the future. And from this it appears that the sanctity at our time is only rabbinic. It's only in Mashiach's time that it becomes from the Torah again. And so this proves how we understand the Rambam, meaning that we understand the Rambam as the Beis Yosef did, is that when a Jew rebuys the land, that it goes back to its original sanctity. As long as it's hands in the non-Jew, it doesn't have its sanctity. And there we do say that a non-Jew can acquire land in Eretz Yisrael, because it's rabbinic. Like I've written there, meaning on the Gemara. And so too in Shmita in our time, that whether he's saying that Shmita is rabbinic, or just like the non-Jew's purchase of the land uproots the obligation of Truma Meiser, so too the purchase of a non-Jew uproots the obligation of Shmita. The Kasa B'zei Mituretz Kushiyas Atosos the Sanhedrin Chafav Aleph Divrei Matel Atis Geton, and from this we can solve the problem in Tosos, where he's questioning how it was possible for them to plant the land to pay the tax. Umashikasov Poku Vazaro, and when it says go out, plant, and Mishum Arnona, from the tax you should do it. Hainu Afilu Bekarka Yisrael, and that's even talking in Jewish land, because it's only rabbinic, and the rabbis would never require us to do something that would lose Jewish control over Eretz Yisrael. For instance, they even matir rabbinic actions on Shabbos to allow Jews to purchase land in Eretz Yisrael. The Rav Kook in Shabbos Haaretz, in his Mavo, and one of his two introductions, he has a Mavo and he has a Hakdama, both mean introduction. In the 11th chapter of the introduction, he starts, Yisod heter mechira hu beikaro al pi rov kamai basrai, desfir lehu sheshvis b'zman hazay derabbanan. The heter mechira is based upon the vast majority of the early and late authorities that hold that Shmita in our time is rabbinic. Shazehu Yisod Divrei Rashi, this is the opinion of Rashi and Tosos and Sanhedrin that we cited several times about going and planting in the Shemitah year to pay the tax. Shebekarka shel Nוכרי mutter lachrosh v'lasos kol avoda, that in the land of a non-Jew it's mutter to plow and do all types of work. V'kach hi das harach b'pirusho sham, and so too is the opinion of Rabbeinu Hananel in his commentary there, Kimavur l'mayen b'dvarav, as it will become clear to anyone who looks at his words. K'moshe biarti mizeh b'kuntras achron, and as I explain in the appendix, the kendas bal hatruma, and so too is the opinion of bal hatruma, the aruch, and the aruch poskim hasovrim shi b'zman hazeh derabbanan, and all of the other poskim that hold that Shmita in our time is rabbinic. Shari pashut hu the sugya de Gemara, because it is clear that the sugya in the Gemara in Gittin on Memvav, Dahada Amar Rabba she'ein kinin nochrei l'Eretz Yisrael להפקיע miyad meiser, who davka b'midei deraisa. When Rava says that a non-Jew cannot acquire land in Eretz Yisrael to uproot the obligations and trumas and meisers, this is when Shmita is deraisa. Avamide derabbanan amrinan yesh kinyan l'nachri להפקיע k'demaskiin anshan. But when it's only rabbinic, then the non-Jew does have the ability to uproot the sanctity from the land. To ifracha mi brisa, as we learn out from the brisa, Yisrael shilkach sadeh minachri ad shelo hivia shalish, a Jew that buys land from a non-Jew before the crop is 1/3 grown. This is talking about grain. V'chazer umocher lo, and he sells it to him mishehivia shalish, after it is 1/3 grown. Chayav meiser. It's obligated meiser because it already became, once it was 1/3 grown, when it became 1/3 grown in the hands of the Jew, that's the time at which it becomes obligated meiser. V'nischayva in lo nischayva lo, meaning if it became liable for meiser when the Jew was in control of the land, then it would be liable in trumas and meisers. If the Jew didn't have control of the land, didn't own the land at the time, then it wouldn't. Mishani. And so we learn, Hacha b'mayaskinan b'Surya. What are we talking about? We're talking about in Syria. V'ksaver kivush yachid lo shmei kivush. And we're holding that when an individual conquers land, as David HaMelech did as an individual, not with the cooperation of the Sanhedrin and the Urim and Tumim, it's an individual conquest that doesn't grant full sanctity to the land. Upeirosh Rashi b'Surya. How does Rashi explain in Syria? Dema'aser didei derabbanan, that the tithe is only of rabbinic nature. V'sham yesh kinyan biyad nochrei להפקיע v'hu adin im ne'amar shvius b'zman hazeh derabbanan. And so too would be the halacha if Shmita in our time is rabbinic, meaning in Syria the sanctity of the land is rabbinic. And we see the Gemara is very clear that a non-Jew who buys land there uproots its obligation in trumas and meisers. So too, in Eretz Yisrael today, where it's rabbinic, a non-Jew can purchase land there to uproot the obligation in trumas and meisers. She doma az l'Surya, because both of them are rabbinic. Therefore, Eretz Yisrael today is like Syria in the time of the Mikdash. V'yesh koach biyad nachri lahafkiya, and then therefore the non-Jew has the ability to uproot the sanctity of the land through his purchase. So the consensus of those that rely on the sale of the land to uproot Shmita is that Shmita in our times, according to the vast majority of poskim, still is only derabbanan, and therefore the non-Jew can uproot the sanctity of the land. Next time, we will begin to work on the issue of lo techanem, that Jews are not supposed to sell land, sell a place to live, give a place to live to non-Jews in Eretz Yisrael, and are we violating that with selling land in Eretz Yisrael to the non-Jews? Everyone should have a wonderful day.